Under the Antarctic ice, the water is the color of old glass. A diver holds still, camera raised, breath rising in slow silver coins toward the frozen ceiling, and out of the blue-gray dark, something enormous glides straight toward him, a long reptilian head, a wide, unhurried mouth, a single dark eye fixed on his. In its jaws, a penguin. The animal does not strike, it slows, it studies him, and it opens that mouth as if it were about to hand him something. This is a leopard seal. In a moment, you will understand why the people who share this water can never quite decide what it is. For 4 days, a leopard seal appeared to feed a human. It brought a National Geographic diver one penguin after another, live ones first, then tired ones, then dead ones, and pushed them toward him when he wouldn't eat. The same kind of animal, on the same frozen coast, once dragged a scientist under the ice and drowned her. One leopard seal brought food to a person. Another killed one. And that face, the one that looks like it's smiling, tells you nothing about which you'll meet. Because the smile isn't a mood, it's just the shape of the skull. Behind it sits a jaw that can strain tiny krill from the water 1 minute and tear a penguin apart the next. To understand why some who work in the far south find this animal harder to read than the orca, you have to start with what it actually is: not a monster, and not a friend, but something far harder to predict. So this is the question. Not whether a leopard seal can hurt you. A 3-meter predator in freezing water can obviously hurt you. The question is how, with the same fixed smile, one of these seals can circle a diver in what looks like pure curiosity, while the rare deadly encounter seems to begin as something else entirely, and what, if anything, tells the two apart. That contradiction isn't a trick of the footage. It's real, it's documented, and it runs right through the biology of this animal. To make sense of it, we have to stop reading the leopard seal's face and start reading 3 things instead: what it's built to do, how it hunts, and what its long record with human beings actually shows. We begin with the one encounter that made this animal famous and very nearly got the ending wrong. In 2006, on assignment for National Geographic in Antarctica, the photographer Paul Nicklin slipped into the water beside a leopard seal the size of a small car. By his own account, she was a large female, perhaps 12 feet long, and close to 1,000 pounds, with a head he said looked bigger than a grizzly bear's. Every instinct told him he was in danger. What followed is one of the strangest encounters ever recorded between a human and a wild predator. The seal caught a penguin, swam back, and released it alive, right in front of his camera. When he didn't react, she did it again. And again. Over the days that followed, the offerings changed. First live penguins, then tired, weakened ones that couldn't escape, then dead ones, pushed gently toward him, even laid across the top of his camera. At one point, another leopard seal appeared, and she drove it off, took its penguin, and brought that one to him too. It is tempting to call this kindness, to say she was trying to feed him, or adopt him, or teach a hopeless predator how to hunt. Nicklin himself has guessed as much, that she may have seen him as a useless predator who couldn't feed himself. But that is a guess, and he has always framed it as one. The honest truth is that no one knows why she did it. We can describe exactly what she did, in detail, on film. We cannot read why. And that gap between what an animal does and what it means by it is the trap this whole story keeps setting. And this is where the story turns. Everyone looks at that broad, curved mouth and sees a smile. Something warm, something gentle. It isn't. That expression is simply the shape of the animal's skull, the way its jaw and lips happen to sit. It is fixed. It never changes. It looks exactly the same on the seal offering you a penguin and on the seal in the middle of a hunt. A human face tells you something about a human mind. This face tells you nothing. So if we can't read the animal from the outside, we have to look at what it's actually built to do, because not every recorded encounter with one of these seals began with curiosity. On the 22nd of July, 2003, a British Antarctic Survey marine biologist named Kirsty Brown was snorkeling at her study site near Rothera Research Station on the Antarctic Peninsula. She was 28, an experienced diver. Without warning, a leopard seal seized her and pulled her under. Her own dive computer later recorded a depth of about 70 meters. Her colleagues launched a boat and fought to revive her, but she could not be saved. An inquest ruled it an accidental death by drowning. To this day, it remains the only confirmed human death ever caused by a leopard seal. Not the only encounter. Not the only tense moment in the water. The only fatality, a single event in the entire recorded history of people working alongside these animals. But that one event tells you something the smile hides. This is a serious predator, and its dimensions are not in doubt. The leopard seal is the second largest seal in the entire Antarctic, behind only the southern elephant seal, and it is one of the very few seals on Earth that regularly turns and hunts other warm-blooded animals. Unusually, the females are the bigger sex. In one detailed field study, adult females averaged around 450 kilograms and just over 3 meters, while the males came in noticeably smaller, the females about half again as heavy. One of the most extreme cases of females outsizing males among marine mammals. The very largest females can approach 3.5 meters and 500 kilograms, though those are the extremes. Not the everyday animal. Picture that body in the water beside you. A long, muscular predator, the length of a small car, with a wide reptilian head, a serpentine neck, and powerful foreflippers that drive it forward faster than you could ever swim. Its body is built for acceleration, capture and control in the water. The seal that killed Kirsty Brown was estimated at around 4.5 meters, an unusually large animal, and quite possibly a big female. Which is exactly what makes the restraint we saw with Nicklin so strange. This is an animal physically capable of overpowering a diver in the water, and in one recorded case, it did. And yet, across decades of people working in these waters, it almost never does. So how can one animal be both the strainer of krill and the hunter of seals? Its mouth can't tell us why it fed one diver and killed another, but it does explain how a single predator can play such wildly different roles. Open a leopard seal's jaws, and you find two completely different tools sharing the same mouth, a contradiction in bone that no amount of watching from the outside would ever reveal. At the front are the teeth you'd expect on a hunter, long, curved canines built to grip and tear large prey, a penguin, or a young seal. These are the weapons that make the animal dangerous, but directly behind them sits something almost no other predator on Earth has. The cheek teeth are each shaped into 3 fine points. When the jaws close, the upper and lower rows slot together and interlock, and at that moment they stop being teeth at all. They become a sieve. Researchers who filmed captive leopard seals showed exactly how it works. In those feeding trials, the seals used suction rather than biting. The animal draws small prey and a rush of seawater into the mouth in a fraction of a second, and then, slowly, squeezes that water back out through the interlocking cheek teeth, holding the food behind and straining it like a net. Suck in. Strain out. The same trick lets it feed on Antarctic krill clouds of tiny shrimp like animals, the way a whale strains a mouthful of the sea. It is, in effect, a predator that can switch between hunting like a shark and filtering like a whale, without ever changing its jaw. And the animal's own skull proves it isn't guesswork. When scientists examined museum specimens, the front canines were worn down from a lifetime of gripping and tearing prey, some losing as much as a fifth of their crown height. The sieve teeth behind them showed no such wear at all. Exactly what you'd expect if one set stabs and the other only strains. So this is what a leopard seal really is, and it isn't simply a killer of penguins and seals. In one detailed study on the Antarctic Peninsula, researchers rebuilt the animal's diet from the chemistry of their tissues, and in spring it split almost evenly, roughly a third Antarctic krill, a third fish, and about a quarter penguin. In other words, a large share of what this fearsome predator eats is not warm-blooded prey at all. It is krill, strained quietly from the water. With one mouth, the animal feeds across an unusually wide span of the Antarctic food web, taking prey atop predator hunts and prey a whale filters. Very few apex predators on Earth do both, and that split is the first clue that the leopard seal is not the single-minded hunter its reputation suggests. But a jaw only tells you what an animal can eat. It doesn't tell you how it hunts the things that fight back. If you want more evidence-led ocean documentaries like this one, take a second to subscribe. Watch a colony of penguins gather at the edge of the ice, and you'll notice something. They hesitate. They crowd forward, then pull back, then crowd forward again, no one wanting to be first into the water. They have a reason. Below the surface, at the very edge of the flow, a leopard seal waits. It is an ambush hunter, and the ice edge is its killing ground, the narrow line every penguin must cross to feed and to come home. Field researchers in Antarctica have documented several distinct hunting techniques at a single site, and, tellingly, individual seals tend to favor their own. One animal's method is not another's. Because a leopard seal has no grasping paws to hold and break down prey, it commonly deals with a captured penguin by thrashing it against the surface of the water, one of the few ways an animal built like this can process a meal it can't hold still. It isn't cruelty. It's simply how the body works. And the menu shifts with the seasons. That balanced spring diet, the mix of krill, fish, and penguin, doesn't hold all year. In the same region, as the short Antarctic summer brings a flood of newborn prey, females in particular swing hard toward warm-blooded food, more penguins, and above all the fat, energy-rich pups of the Antarctic fur seal, timed almost exactly to when those pups are born. The leopard seal is one of the very few seals on Earth that regularly hunts other seals, and the hunting isn't shared out evenly. At one island, researchers found that just one or two individual seals each year accounted for around 60% of the fur seal pups taken. A handful of specialists doing most of the killing, while others barely touched seal pups at all. There's a detail worth being honest about. Solitary here means it hunts alone. Not that it never tolerates another of its kind. Loose gatherings do form, where prey is thick, and rare cooperative moments have been reported. But the contrast with a coordinated pod is real. Most leopard seals hunt without the stable teamwork or shared prey culture of an orca family. Each one tends to develop its own habits and its own menu, which brings us straight back to the divers. If this is such a capable, self-taught, individually minded hunter, then why do documented encounters so rarely develop into hunts? One number breaks the horror story. In a British Antarctic survey review, a team of researchers pulled together roughly 30 years of contact between people and leopard seals across the Antarctic. From questionnaires and interviews, they gathered more than 130 reported encounters, and separately, they combed through almost 9,000 diving records to work out how often people and seals actually met, and how often anyone got hurt. In all of that, not one recorded curious approach ever escalated into an attack. Not one. The rare serious incidents came from seals nobody had seen beforehand, animals that were never first observed approaching in curiosity at all. That single finding reframes almost everything. The leopard seal that circles a diver, mouths a camera, or shadows a snorkeler along the ice is, overwhelmingly, doing what the one with Nicklin was doing: investigating, testing, trying to work out what this strange, slow, bubble-blowing shape actually is. In the documented curious encounters, that following never turned into a hunt. One possibility is that humans simply don't match the prey patterns most leopard seals have learned to pursue. Even that famous feeding encounter, seen in this light, looks less like affection and more like an intensely curious animal meeting a creature it couldn't quite place, and responding through feeding behavior that was already familiar to it. Context seemed to matter, too, in that record. The strongest responses came at the ice edge, the very boundary where a leopard seal spends its life watching for prey, while encounters out in open water were more often described as simply curious. One fatality, in 30 years of people working in these waters, is not the record of a man-eater. It's the record of an animal that could hurt us far more often than it does, and almost always does something else instead. But this is where we have to be careful in both directions. Curious is not the same as harmless. The same review that found no curious encounter ever turned deadly also concluded that, on rare occasions, a leopard seal can treat a human as prey. The fatal attack in 2003 matched, in its pattern, the way these animals hunt for seals. Whether that particular seal saw a person as food, felt cornered, or mistook her for something else, that too is unknown. After that death, the British Antarctic Survey stopped snorkeling at its stations and brought in strict new safeguards, including a marine mammal watch before anyone enters the water. So the danger was never that the leopard seal routinely hunts people. It almost never does. The danger is the exception you can't see coming. And that raises the real question, the one that explains why a lone leopard seal can be harder to read than an orca. The orca is the ocean's most famous killer, and on paper it is the more frightening animal, larger, stronger, faster, hunting in coordinated pods that can take down almost anything in the sea. And yet there is no confirmed record of a wild orca killing a human. Orcas are deeply social animals, and many populations carry culturally transmitted prey preferences, learned and maintained across families and generations. Where a pod's identity is known, that history gives researchers real behavioral context to work from. The leopard seal offers you no such comfort. It hunts alone. And here is the strange twist at the center of this animal. As a species, the leopard seal is a generalist that eats almost everything the Southern Ocean has to offer: seals, penguins, fish, squid, and krill. But most individual seals are not generalists at all. Each one narrows down, over its life, to its own way of feeding. Each whisker carries a feeding record chemistry laid down as it grows, a window of roughly 100 days, in some cases stretching toward a year. When scientists read that chemistry along the whiskers of dozens of leopard seals, most turned out to be specialists rather than jacks of all trades. Some fed consistently high up the food chain, others stayed at middling or lower levels, and a smaller number shifted their strategy over time. So the animal in front of you is not a leopard seal, in the way you can meet an orca and roughly know what its family tends to hunt. Many orca populations have prey preferences passed down through the pod, patterns researchers can follow across families and generations. A solitary leopard seal offers far less to go on. Its individual feeding history is invisible to the diver meeting it for the first time. And that individuality doesn't mean it has decided your food. Nothing in the science says these seals sort humans onto their menu. It only means the animal is less of a known quantity than its reputation suggests. And that may be much of what makes a lone leopard seal so hard to assess. Not its power, but its unpredictability, because, with a solitary hunter, part of the animal's history is always hidden from you. And there is one more thing that makes it feel that much stranger. Beneath the ice, male leopard seals sing. Not occasionally, for hours every day, across a breeding season that runs for months, hanging alone in the black water and repeating a small handful of stylized calls, just 5 or so distinct sounds strung into long, patterned sequences. When researchers analyzed the songs of 26 males, they found something almost eerie about them. The patterns were about as predictable as a simple human nursery rhyme, and individual's sequence could stay stable across several days. Yet, oddly, it was less tightly ordered than the elaborate song of a humpback whale. What the singing is actually for, scientists still can't agree on. It may be a male advertising himself to the few passing females. It may be a warning to other males to stay away. It may be both, and it doesn't come cheap. A leopard seal can't breathe while it's calling, so every call consumes part of the very breath it needs to stay under, which is part of why some researchers think the singing is an honest signal of a male's strength and stamina. Picture it, then, a solitary predator, alone in the freezing dark, singing the same strange rhyme over and over, for reasons we still don't fully understand. That is the animal that shares the water with the diver. And our uncertainty doesn't stop at behavior. We can't even say with confidence how many leopard seals there are. Estimates run into the tens of thousands, but they carry enormous uncertainty, and the true trend is simply unknown. The most recent global assessment, back in 2015, listed the species as being of least concern, but that reflects its wide range and the absence of any proven decline, not confident good health, and even that estimate was flagged as highly uncertain. The same ice these animals hunt from, breed on, and sing beneath is changing fast, and shrinking sea ice and falling krill could press on them in the years ahead. So what, in the end, is the honest answer to the smile? Put the two faces side by side. The seal that spent 4 days pressing penguins toward a photographer's camera, and the seal that pulled a scientist beneath the ice and would not let her go. On both animals, the exact same fixed, curved mouth. The same smile. And that is the answer. The smile was never telling you anything. It is anatomy the shape of a skull, unchanged whether the animal is curious, indifferent, or hunting. What varies is behavior, and behavior in this animal is written one individual at a time. There is no species-wide rule the leopard seal is obeying when it leaves a diver alone, and none it breaks when it doesn't. Across decades of diving records and reported encounters, leaving humans alone was overwhelmingly the usual outcome. But restraint is a behavior, not a promise. A creature that almost always leaves you alone is not a creature that always will. So we are left judging this predator the way we should judge any wild animal, not by its face, and not by its reputation, but by its behavior and the odds. A friendly-looking face and a frightening name are equally poor guides. We know the leopard seal can hunt us, and almost never does. We know its curiosity is real, and its restraint is real. What we still can't know is why that one female brought a human penguins, or why another attacked a scientist. Those motives stayed under the ice with them. The face means nothing. The record means a great deal. The smile is fixed, but the risk is not. The leopard seal leaves us with a strange kind of honesty, an animal that shows us its face and tells us nothing, and that we are left to judge by what it does rather than how it looks. If that idea stays with you, there is another predator whose story turns everything we assume on its head. off the coast of South Africa. The great white shark was the undisputed king of its waters until the orca arrived and the sharks simply vanished. What happened between those two hunters rewrites what we thought we knew about who fears whom in the sea, and it is a good place to go next. And if these evidence-led ocean documentaries are your kind of thing, the ones that separate what the footage shows from what we only want it to mean, consider subscribing before you leave. There is a whole ocean of these stories still to tell.